Recapping day one of the NFL draft on FFT Express. Jamey Eisenberg is here. I'm Adam Aizer. I'm just going to go ahead and take a little nap for 8 minutes. I'm exhausted, Jamey. Can you handle this?
What are you exhausted from? You wrote one. Let's just take a peek behind the curtain. Let's take a peek behind the curtain here. So we wrote stories as a staff on all the skill players and quarterbacks who were drafted tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Our esteemed editor, Dan Schneier, said, "Hey guys, can you help out? Here's the plan, blah, blah, blah." So Adam, very kind of him, steps up and says, "I'll do Cam Ward," which we knew.
No, that's not, no. I said, let me know how I can help. And
Look at that page.
Yeah, look at that. The Titans draft Cam Ward. I said, let me know how I can help. I know you want articles from Dave, Jamey, and Heath, but I'm happy to pitch in. He said, why don't you write Cam Ward? So I wrote the Cam Ward reaction piece 2 days ago because, we knew where he was going.
Yep. So then you're tired tonight.
Dude, all day I was working. I was doing research for the show all day. Like how many passing yards per game do we get from Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones? How do you ever see a tight end finish high when he's got this low of it? I went through the top 10 tight ends for the last 4 seasons and looked at where their offenses finish in points per game and gross passing yards per game, because I had a feeling one or both of those tight ends were going to be on crappy pass offenses. One of them is. So I did a whole bunch of research. I really went, and throughout the draft, I was looking up the PFF grades for the offensive tackles and all that. I was doing my part. I swear, I wasn't just watching the Knicks and the Panthers the whole night. So anyway, but they both won. That was great. So Jamey, who's your biggest winner and your biggest loser tonight?
Ashton Jeanty is the biggest winner. Going to a place that we were hopeful for. There was clearly some thought of him going to Jacksonville before they made the trade, which would have still been good, but who knows how much he would have had to share with, one or the 2 guys who were there. I doubt it, but still the potential. Trevor Lawrence is a winner. He gets another receiver in Travis Hunter. I think all the quarterbacks, you have to say they're winners in the receiving options that they got. So Golden going to the Packers, Buka going to the Bucks, just makes Baker Mayfield that much better. And Bryce Young, even, getting the addition of Tetairoa McMillan. Go back to the Jaguars. I think for right now, Travis Etienne's a winner. The Browns, for not drafting Travis Hunter, makes Jerry Jeudy and David Njoku winners. Some of these teams that had quarterback questions, so Joe Flacco is a winner, at least as of now. So, it was, for the most part, more of a friendly draft than I think a non-friendly draft. So like the losers, for example, Najee Harris is probably the biggest loser, right? With Omarion Hampton going to the Chargers.
Yeah.
I don't think
it was kind of an unfriendly draft
for skill position players,
for the rookies,
because of the receivers and their destinations
and the tight ends and their destinations. I was disappointed in that. Hampton could have been a little bit better, but I think he can overtake Najee fairly easily.
What if I told you that Anthony Richardson became a 65% passer?
I'd say there's no chance. He's at 49%, I think, right now. So let's take
let's go 60%.
Yeah. Well, if Anthony Richardson is a 60% passer, then he's going to be a top 6-7 quarterback. So I'm going to be drafting a ton of Anthony Richardson. But again,
But in terms of Warren.
Yeah, the answer to that question, by the way, is, of what I was researching earlier, tight end doesn't really matter how good your offense is or the passing yards. It doesn't matter nearly as much as wide receiver. What really matters is, I say it all the time, being first or second on the team in targets. That's my concern for Warren. I don't know that he will be. And there's not a lot of targets to go around to begin with. So
right now,
I'm not sure I see 100 targets out of him.
I don't see 100 targets at him. That's why I like Loveland better. I think there's a better opportunity for him and his offense to get more chances. The thing that concerns me about Loveland is what we saw from Dalton Kincaid, who went to a team that had an established tight end, right? Not as good. Dawson Knox, obviously not as good as Cole Kmet. And it was hard for him to be productive in his rookie campaign. And I could see the same thing for Loveland, being hard for him to excel in his rookie campaign. You asked, we didn't really go into depth about this, but you asked about like rankings for those two guys in particular. And I put Loveland at 11 and Warren at 12. And the two guys that immediately are behind them are Tucker Kraft and Jake Ferguson. I think Ferguson first, Kraft second. Mostly because I see more upside for the two rookies by comparison if they hit than Kraft, who could be really good, as we saw. But I think those two guys kind of cap out, Ferguson and Kraft. Ferguson, even in his breakout season 2023, they cap out at about 10 PPR points per game. I think these guys could be potentially 12.
All right, we'll be right back. I'm going to ask you the excitement-o-meter out after this on FFT Express. All right, how excited are you on a scale of 1 to 10 for Ashton Jeanty on the Raiders?
1 as in round 1, which is where he should be drafted in redraft leagues.
Okay, but it's a 10. It's a 10. How about for Travis Hunter on the Jaguars?
7 if he's playing defense too much. 8 if he's playing defense a little. 9 if he's not playing defense well.
Tetairoa McMillan on the Panthers.
7.
Omarion Hampton on the Chargers.
8.
Emeka Ibuka on the Bucks.
1 for 2025. 7 for 2026 and beyond.
Matthew Golden on the Packers.
6.
Tyler Warren on the Colts.
6.
Colston Loveland on the Bears.
7.
Okay. We had a pretty interesting conversation with Dave about Brian Thomas Jr. and I brought up Malik Neighbors too. And Dave kind of felt Thomas was a loser. I kind of felt Neighbors was a little bit of a loser for a very strange reason, because I was hoping for, like 5 games of Jameis Winston, which I think would have been terrific for him. But now I think if they go to another quarterback, which I sort of expect, it'll be Jackson Dart instead of Jameis Winston. And I think that's going to be pretty bad for Malik Neighbors. And I don't think Wilson's great for him either. So what do you think about Wilson and Thomas right now? I mean, Neighbors and Thomas.
I didn't move them at all in my rankings. Neighbors is wide receiver 6, I believe. I think I have it. Chase, Jefferson, Lamb, Collins, St. Brown, Neighbors. And then Puka, Thomas, Brown. AJ Brown.
I think there was one wide receiver that I can think of off the top of my head that had a great rookie year and then struggled in his second year as his team added another wide receiver. Now, I could be wrong about this. Thomas, you're here if you want to fact check it. I want to say Anquan Bolden. He had an amazing rookie year. I think he set a record at the time, right? Like catch record. I want to say they drafted Larry Fitzgerald the year after. And
it was either 2002 or 2003, and then the next year was Fitzgerald 3 or 4.
Yeah, I think they drafted Fitzgerald the year after, obviously very early in the draft. It's pretty reminiscent of Brian Thomas and now Travis Hunter. Year 2 was a bad year for Bolden. I think there was more to it.
He also got hurt.
Yeah, he did. But even when he was healthy, wasn't as good. And then he went on to the Hall of Fame. Did he make the Hall of Fame?
No, he's one of those guys that I think will eventually get in.